All right, we can get started. We are over 100 participants here today. Thank you so much for joining us. Um, our world is really rapidly changing around us, but we know the intensity of your work hasn't slowed down, and we're fully prepared to support you in that. One of the great privileges of the work that we get to do is to see the incredible creative organizing that organizations like yours do every day, and we'll get to highlight some of those examples in this presentation. Before we start, Kit, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. Please leave your microphone muted. You should all be automatically muted, but if you accidentally unmute it, the icon is at the lower left-hand corner of your screen. It's a little microphone icon. Since we have so many people on here, we want to just make sure the quality is good. We're going to leave plenty of time at the end for questions, but as we go, feel free to leave questions in chat. We'll collect them and address them at the end. We also will be sending out this recording as soon as it's available, and you are free to share it with your colleagues or whoever it's relevant for. So quickly on the agenda, first, our partnerships manager, Kit Rosen, will talk about some specific strategies that we're seeing clients adopt and tactics we've seen be particularly effective in transitioning to those strategies. Then our senior client success manager, Jocelyn Strauss, will lead a demo of our current virtual capabilities. And finally, our senior product manager, Jess Matthews, will talk about the virtual first enhancements we're making to our platform as we speak. So with that, I will hand it over to Kit.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. Hello, everyone. My name is Kit. I think I've met a lot of you, but for those who I have not yet met, thank you so much for joining us. As Emily said, before we dig into the specific examples of the way we've seen our partners really adapt to this changing environment quickly in terms of virtual organizing, we want to talk a little bit holistically about how Mobilize just generally is optimized for virtual organization and about pretty much the bread and butter of our platform. So the first thing, you're seeing a lot of numbers on these screens. The first thing that we want y'all to know is that we've really always been optimized for virtual events since 2018. As you can see, we've had over 700,000 signups for virtual events on the platform. So before COVID-19 even hit, we were assisting and seeing our partners do a lot of really creative and clever engagement with their supporters, whether that's for electoral campaigns or 501c3s and c4s. So we're going to run through some examples today of things we've seen work really well, but we want you all to rest assured that we've been doing this for a couple of years now, and we're really here to help you along the way as we do adjust to the new normal, or what the new normal will be for the next couple of weeks and months. The second thing we're seeing is that volunteers are still really eager to organize with their communities with causes they care a lot about. I don't think I have to tell any of y'all on the line, the social distancing can be quite isolating. I know I personally am missing my friends, missing my family members. So the desire to engage with causes and organizations that we all care about does not stop now. And I think is even heightened a bit as we sit at home and worry about our family members and friends and wait for this to die down a little bit. So aside from the specific timely items, we do want to run through the bread and butter, as I said, of Mobilize and what has helped our partners to continuously organize really successfully, both in and out of the virtual organizing space. So the first big stat, which we love, is we have 1.6 million volunteers in our Mobilize network. So that means that since 2018, 1.6 million volunteers have come to Mobilize and signed up for an event for a cause or a candidate that they care about. These 1.6 million volunteers are as eager as ever right now to continue participating and continue meeting new folks, reconnecting with folks through these bonds of community. The second thing we're seeing here is that Mobilize is a huge time saver for organizers. So whether your event is in person or virtual, through a series of automated nudges that we can talk a little bit about today, and then in future conversations, we are saving y'all a lot of time. So as you really react to the current situation, our software, the nudges we're sending out, series of other features that we will go into today, are saving all of you time and helping you to take care of the really more meaningful in-person connections that y'all are making. In terms of the attendees we're seeing, the average number of increase in attendees from when folks join Mobilize, or the percentage that they're seeing, is a 30% increase. So we do a lot of tracking on our end of how many volunteers are signing up for shifts, and we help our partners with that. So what this stat is telling you is when you are not a partner with Mobilize and then you join with us, the average increase in signups that you'll see for your volunteers is 30%. So that is obviously huge. That number speaks for itself. A couple other things I want to note is in regards to that 1.6 million network, of 1.6 million volunteer network, we're seeing that about 40% of shifts, so the actual number is 38, are coming from the network effect. So whether that's as a volunteer, I'm sharing an event with my network of folks on social media, whether that's one organization promoting an event for another organization, almost 40% of signups are being facilitated by that network effect. That is huge. That obviously will not stop in this time of social distancing. So with that, we want to get into the meat of this, which is some examples of the way our partners have really quickly and cleverly adjusted to, as we're saying, this current climate, so you all can get some ideas yourselves. So, one more number thing. This is a huge climb. As recently as the first week of March, we were seeing about 25% of signups on the platform were for virtual events. As recently as yesterday, we saw that 93% of signups were for virtual events. So that's not a huge surprise, but fun to see it in a little graph. So now we will run through some ideas and examples, and I do want to plug that you can always go to mobilize.us and simply filter for virtual events if you or your colleagues are trying to get some more examples of how you all can engage with your supporters virtually. So this first thing we're seeing is these are the Dems in Virginia. They are hosting a virtual phone bank, so everybody is of course making these calls from the comfort of their own homes to call their neighbors and their community members to help them understand if their voting date has changed and to remind them of where and when to vote if those details have changed. So this is a statewide mission to make sure everyone in Virginia knows how, where, when to vote. Next, this is from my home state in Massachusetts. I'm especially excited about this one. This is Meg Wheeler. She is running for the state Senate, and she is hosting a virtual text bank. So you can see there are several different shifts that folks can sign up for. And then in the registration email, so as a volunteer, if I sign up for an event, I receive a confirmation email with all of the logistics. This email is driving me to the virtual text bank. So I do not have to leave my kitchen or my couch to text my friends and my neighbors about Meg Wheeler. Another example is, this is all about the census. So obviously a lot of concerns about the census right now, and those have been ongoing. This is kind of like during GOTV when folks are calling to remind folks to mail in their absentee ballots. This is something that we would suggest organizations doing, which is having phone banks, again, from home. Folks don't have to leave their couch to call their neighbors and say, did you receive your census request yet? Do you need help filling it out? Do you know where to send it, etc. This is something we have a lot of shifts signed up for this, but folks can sign up at any given time to make those calls. This one is all about training. So as many of you know, as organizers, volunteers sometimes are new to the space. They've never phone banked before. They've never canvassed. We're seeing both electoral. So you see Joe Biden for president, and then, for example, Swing Left is an organization hosting a lot of these virtual trainings to enable their volunteers with the tools they need to defeat Susan Collins together, or help Joe win the seat. So we have an action center training. So there's a whole host of actions that the Biden team is helping their volunteers to learn how to do. The Let's Defeat Susan Collins Together, Recruit for More Remote Action. So these are, again, all opportunities to train your volunteers how they can help this election cycle, whether or not these are in-person or virtual actions. This is one of my favorites. We've seen a lot of organizations be really creative, special guests. This is also a really good way to get folks who are minimally engaged with the kind of enticement of a special guest. So when Elizabeth Warren was still in the race, we saw that she had her campaign manager, Roger Lau, hop onto a call this was actually for teens who were involved in the race. It can be really exciting as a teenager or as anybody to speak to a campaign manager of a major presidential campaign. So the Warren team saw their registrations for this event peak up very, very quickly once they blasted this out. And then obviously the Bernie Sanders campaign had Bernie on the call. This is very exciting for many people. Their registrations really peaked around here. We are aware that obviously not every organization can have a presidential candidate call in, and we would encourage you to be creative here. So whether it's asking one of your super volunteers to call in and explain how they have been so successful in recruiting their friends.
Kit, can I jump in for a second? Yeah, just make sure you guys leave your microphones muted so we can all hear Kit. Thank you so much.
Great. And then, as I was saying, super volunteers or even a key field organizer, this is a really great way to remind your volunteers that you are not only part of the movement, but you are pivotal to the movement. So we are taking the time to ask a special guest to sit in and really assure your volunteers that they are stakeholders in this campaign. So we call it a little insider baseball. Here's the information, here are the upcoming events. We're so excited to have you on board, and we ask that you stay on our team. Virtual community building event. So this is what I was getting into earlier. I think we're all feeling we're missing community here in this age of social distancing. This is where we've seen a lot of our partners be really, really creative. So All on the Line is hosting a book club. So everyone reads the book on their own and then calls in to discuss the book and discuss the implications of the book for this election cycle and so forth. We also saw that this congressional candidate is actually hosting a virtual field office. So this is a really fun opportunity for volunteers to meet the organizers who are obviously running the campaign, but also to connect with other volunteers so that when the time comes and we are okay to do in-person events again, you can perhaps make a plan to canvas with one of those volunteers that you've been video chatting with for 2 months. Couple other community building events that we thought were fun. This was an e-lunch. So this is another congressional candidate. They're hosting e-lunches. So you can call in, you can listen to a podcast for a couple minutes, and then again, connect with other volunteers over lunch. Everyone needs to eat lunch. And then last thing here, this is another congressional. They're hosting a volunteer leader call. So this is again, goes to ensuring that your volunteers know that they are key stakeholders in your campaign, asking volunteer leaders to hop on the phone, talk about ideas, talk insider baseball, really ensures that they feel they are invested in your campaign and will come back. Couple more. Again, I know I'm running through these relatively quickly. We will send this out afterwards and then create spaces for one-on-one phone calls if anybody does want to chat a little bit more in depth about all of these different creative ways to engage with your folks virtually. So this is another reading opportunity. This is March Forward is doing a NY24 community read. So what they're doing is actually sending out just quick articles. Looks like they're doing it about weekly. So folks read the article and then get to call in and have a virtual book club to discuss the article. Looks like they're doing most of their book clubs during lunchtime. Again, even if folks are at home working, generally they're able to take a break for lunch. So this makes it a little bit more accessible for folks. And then the last thing that we wanted to show y'all is this virtual letter writing party. So Swing Left, I encourage everyone to go to their feed. They host really creative events. They're hosting a virtual letter writing party. Bring your coffee, bring your tea, bring your snack, and write letters amongst friends. And I think, great, I think I'm handing it over to Jocelyn. Jocelyn, are you ready for me to stop sharing my screen? Great.
Yep. We are gonna tag you out and I will tag in. Okay. too many things open. All right. Okay, so I'm going to give just a brief demo of the virtual events that we do have available for you to create. So as you guys get up and running with your dashboards, you're going to have a similar looking dashboard. This is where you will land. This is your events feed on the back end. You can kind of think of it that way. From here, you'll be able to create new events. We have two basic types of virtual events available. We have the virtual volunteer action right here and the shifted virtual event. And I'm going to go into kind of demoing both of them. But I want to just briefly say that using Mobilize virtual events really allows you to seamlessly do event recruitment. So Kit talked a lot about the network effect. So with the ability of having your virtual events on Mobilize, you're going to be able to display them on your event feed. It'll allow partner organizations to promote your virtual events and drive new volunteers to take action with you, or just learn more about your work and what your organization does. Additionally, using Mobilize virtual events for all of your virtual actions or events will allow your attendees to get automated reminders. This reduces flake rate. As well as providing you feedback, which gives you sort of an immediate feedback loop with your supporters. In addition, you're able to consolidate and enhance your data. This is going to allow you to track your volunteerism all in one place. We also integrate with CRMs like Van. And this will just really help you grow your supporter list, but will also help you with your future re-engagement and identifying all those super volunteers who keep coming back to take action. So, a couple examples of these events. I'm going to dig into the virtual volunteer action first. This one is a text bank from home. I'm going to kind of run through this a little quickly. As Kit said, there will be later conversations and we'll do deeper dives and trainings in the future, but just so you have a sense of what these are, a virtual event is going to have a lot of similarities with all of the other events. The main thing to call out here, you have a space to provide a brief description, something exciting and clear about what the ask is. We have the ability to put a picture on every single event, so your event feed is going to look very exciting. And then you're going to have the ability to use a registration confirmation email. So this is for folks who are scheduling themselves for an event. They will get this registration confirmation email, and this is going to be chock full of all the extra details that you want to share with your volunteers. We have things like bring a friend ask. We also integrate with ActBlue. So these are two things that you can make use of in all of your events. The ability to plug in people to a virtual action immediately. This is the virtual action setting part. You will be able to put your URL right here. So this example is just the Mobilize website, but this can be anything from a recording to a text bank to an open virtual phone bank. A lot of people use this for really any of their virtual calls to action that are not particularly time bound. So this is not something that's occurring at a time. This is like an act now. People can schedule themselves or take immediate action. So best for virtual actions that allow volunteers to act remotely on their own time schedule. You can put some parameters, and I'm going to show you what a fresh new one looks like. So you can schedule these, you can pick the dates that you would like them to be, and you can put in the kind of time frames. You can have a max capacity if you like, and you can put actually when people can sign up for this. So a good example is if you have something like an open virtual phone bank and you don't want people calling people at 6 a.m., you can put something like 9 p.m. or 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. to make sure that people are calling within the frame that you want them to, but really can take any action at any point during the day. So that is what sort of the back of the event would look like. Once you've created the event, you're going to have an event details page. And at the bottom, you're going to find all of the shifts that you've created. So this one has a lot of availability for this Act Now timeframe. And you'll see when people take action, you'll see a number in here, and those will be the folks that have either completed a shift or registered for those shifts. The actual event is going to look like this. So this would be the URL that you would take and share out and recruit for people. This will also appear on the event feed itself. So I can open that into a new tab. And you'll have all of your events in one place, easy for recruitment to share that out. And then when people click onto the event, they'll be able to either start texting now, or they can actually pick a time for later. They can add as many of those times as they'd like. So if they want to take action every day at noon, they can easily do that. They'll get a reminder, they'll get that confirmation information, which is going to reduce the flake rate on it. Really great way to drive action. The other type is a virtual event. So this is a shifted virtual event. So different from the kind of act now version of a virtual event, this actually happens at a time. So this really works best with virtual actions such as like a meeting or get together that's occurring at a specific time. Maybe you do have a virtual shifted bank where you shifted phone bank where you want people to actually be calling at certain times. Maybe you have sort of a community built around that. But really any type of virtual action that might occur at a certain time, like a town hall. I've heard of people using it for various things like the governor is going to be speaking and they want to share out the event, but they use a virtual event so that they can capture their volunteerism. It's very similar to the event that I just showed as far as you have the event name, all of these different fields in here, description, and then the big differences here are going to be the registration confirmation is where you really want to put the information for whatever this virtual action is. So in this instance, it's a Zoom meeting. We want to make sure that people receive this confirmation email and receive all the Zoom information. This is not something we would want in the description up here. The description should just really be clear about what the action is and everything like that. That way people are going to sign up for this Mobilize event. They'll receive the Zoom information, and at the time of the event, they will use this Zoom information to log in. Very similar to what you all did on this call itself. So you kind of actually felt this workflow yourselves. Again, you have the ability to use Act Blue if you have it, or the Bring a Friend Ask. And additionally, for these shifted events, you're able to use a post-action survey. So I mentioned earlier, you get a feedback loop. This is where you get the feedback loop. So by checking off this box an hour after the event has happened or the shift, they're going to receive an SMS if they've opted in or an email asking them how the event went and actually asking them for feedback. So you're able to get qualitative feedback on the event to make sure that your volunteers and supporters are receiving your event well. There's no technical complications with anything that you're using, and you can always improve upon your event as you go. Scheduling these are more time-bound, as you can see. This one happens at one time. This example is a membership meeting. I will show you what that membership meeting looks like here. So this is what this event will look like. People will be able to sign up automatically for it. I can then actually, this is Bring a Friend With Me Ask, so I can copy this, I can share this on Facebook and make sure that I'm bringing my friends. If I click skip, it didn't work this time. I've actually clicked it so many times, I don't think I made it work. If I click skip, it'll actually also give me some more options to sign up. So not only am I getting the ability to have a volunteer take an action immediately, but they're also being prompted to sign up for additional actions that are on the event feed. So similar to the event I just showed earlier, you're going to have a section where your signups are. You can export your signups as well, and this is where you're going to get all that awesome qualitative feedback. And if you click into it, you'll see the people who have registered for the event, and you can actually control all of the statuses right here, add new attendees. And then finally, really important to note, you can actually use what we call Mobilize messaging. You can email your attendees directly from the event. So you don't need to copy paste an email and move in and out of your Gmail or whatever you use. You can communicate anything from important information that you need to communicate about the event itself or anything around the event, or you could just simply be introducing yourself. So a lot of ways that you can use this. You can use it for re-engagement of past events as well. So that's a very quick rundown of all of this. The last thing I just wanted to show is this is what the confirmation email will look like. So I did sign up for my own event. This is what a confirmation email looks like for that. So I'm going to actually tap back out now and kick it right back over to Kit. All right, Kit. Oh, you are on mute still.
Sorry, everyone. I lost my mouse briefly.
Oh.
Okay, I have so many screens up. Let me share my screen again. I apologize. Emily, are we kicking it over to Peter and Jess next?
Yes.
Okay, great. Share. 1 second.
Zoom obviously is getting a lot of additional traffic right now as well.
Zoom is getting traffic and my computer does not like me right now. Okay, great. Jess, are we all set?
Yes. So hi, everyone. I'm Jess Matthews. As Emily said earlier, I'm our Senior Product Manager on the Organizing Tools Squad. So I'm going to be going through a little bit about how we've adapted to the recent shift towards virtual events. So as Emily and Kit have already sort of outlined, virtual events has already been part of what we do. But historically, our attention has been a bit divided between in-person and virtual events. So for the very, very near term, we will be overwhelmingly focused on the virtual experience and how we can aid online organizing. We've already started to shift some of our engineering capacity away from in-person specific updates to further improve our virtual tool set. So I'm going to go into a little bit about that. If you can go to the next slide, please, Kit. Great. So we are constantly making updates, in particular around the volunteer experience, that benefit our partners and that require no additional effort on your part. We will continue to make a lot of those constant improvements in this virtual environment. So a couple of examples. One of our big investments this year was event suggestions. So more events or related events after a volunteer signs up. And we've seen that this continues to have incredible impact in the context of virtual events. Almost 10% or over 10% of shifts on Sunday came from those event suggestions off virtual events. Another big investment that we've made is in the social bring a friend experience. So asking volunteers at multiple points to promote, to share events and invite others. This continues to be powerful even in a time of social distancing and drove about 14% of our shifts on Sunday. So these are some of the areas that we'll continue to be investing in and continually optimizing as we shift towards virtual first events. Next slide, please. So here are a few of the immediate changes that we're going to be making in the next week or two. So we'll be improving the discovery and sign-up experience for virtual events. So that involves updating the events feed and event details pages. We've already seen that recent changes earlier this year have driven a major increase in event page views and shifts. And so we're looking to continue to make that level of optimization, even in a world where virtual events make up all or most of the feed. We've already seen incredible activity for among volunteer hosts who are using Mobilize to host a wide variety of virtual events, virtual house parties, virtual phone banks, virtual just meet and greets and things like that using tools like Zoom and Hangouts. But we'll be adapting our distributed organizing tools to further support virtual events with a real focus on helping preserve the local communities that we've already seen using these sort of volunteer event creation tools. So really making sure that these kind of in-person networks can continue to thrive and evolve on Mobilize. Additionally, the automated confirmations that Jocelyn and Kit mentioned, we've already seen those have incredible impact even for virtual events, but we will be updating these to ensure that they are clear and effective for virtual events and really highlight things like teleconference details and other information around access to virtual tools. Next slide. So longer term, based on what we've seen, we know that virtual organizing will continue to be a major part of our roadmap for the foreseeable future. We will be continuing to help people recruit their friends through social tools that are optimized for that virtual experience. We will be improving and investing in communication tools. So you saw Mobilize messaging. We'll also be looking at things like group chat to really help strengthen the networks and the communication between volunteers and volunteer hosts and organizers. We'll be considering and exploring new integrations that will help make your workflows more streamlined, which we'd love to hear more from you about in the feedback form. And we'll be rolling out additional improvements and features to help support new types of virtual activity, including new virtual event types, and also features that will help support things like petitions, fundraising, and social media campaigns. Next slide, please. So just to sum everything up, Mobilize, we believe, is already set up to be the best solution for virtual events. It's always been part of our DNA and everything that we've done, but we are definitely shifting our focus towards making the virtual capabilities even stronger and more nuanced as we move forward. And lastly, we would love to hear from you. We build this product based on the feedback from our organizers and users, and Emily's going to be sharing, along with the slides after this, a feedback form. So we'd really love to hear about what you're seeing working in the field and what you would love to see from Mobilize. And that's something that we, as a product team, really love to talk to you about.
Great, thanks, Jess. We have collected a bunch of questions, so we can run through those now. If others come to mind while we're talking, just throw them in chat and we'll make sure to bring those up. So to get us started, we had a question about the virtual texting process, and if we can just walk through that. Jocelyn, do you want to tag in there?
Sure. Yeah, so virtual texting, often this is referred to as peer-to-peer texting. The Mobilize works really well in tandem with other tools. So an example of this is linking to a Hustle campaign. Hustle is a peer-to-peer texting platform, as well as through text. There are a lot of different ones you can use. I've also actually seen a lot of clients use like a URL to a Slack channel or other similar platforms, so that a sign up sort of automatically gets added to a team, gets immediate support and training. And so there's a lot of creative ways that folks do this, but essentially being able to use a specific URL to probably a peer-to-peer texting platform would be the most straightforward way, either in like an act now version of a virtual event, or if it's shifted, having that set up like that in the private details.
Great, and we had a follow-up question to that. When someone responds to the follow-up text, where can you find their review? Jess, is that something you can answer?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a lot of engagement with the post-shift survey that we send out. We have around, I think, 30% of volunteers that contribute an actual qualitative response to that kind of survey. All of that rich information, as well as attendance data, can be found in event exports, which comes down as a CSV that you can use and build into any kind of reporting or any other follow-up you want to do.
Great. We had a question: is one-on-one help available to start an event? Jocelyn, maybe you can talk about our client success team and the onboarding process.
Yeah, definitely one-on-one help is available. We have a tool called Intercom that's actually right on the platform. So if you're in there making an event and you have a question, there is, generally speaking, unless you're coming in at like 12 a.m. or something, there is somebody available to answer your questions. We also have a huge help center. So there's a lot of stuff that you can actually just look for and find on your own. We also, I myself work on the success team. I have many clients that I meet with weekly, sometimes even more so, and we have lots of one-on-one conversations about how to build their program, how to mobilize more people, so forth and so on. We also have a weekly onboarding as a kind of catch-all, so for folks who might not be getting as much support as that, but definitely need to get some of their staff onboarded, we have a weekly onboarding every Friday.
Great. We had a two-part question come up. The first part is, what is the total reach? We weren't totally sure what you meant by this, but I can talk about a little bit the usage of our platform. We have almost 2,000 organizations on our platform, and like we mentioned before, 1.6 million volunteers. So you're already exposed to that huge network just by joining. And for every organization that comes on board, everybody benefits because they bring their volunteers with them, and the network grows, and it's more opportunities for volunteers to join. The second part of the question was, can this be connected to VAN? Jess, I'm going to let you jump in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So NGP VAN was was our first and is now and still is our most robust integration. So something that we are very deeply integrated with. Some of the help materials that we'll send after this will also kind of go into detail about how virtual events in particular sync over to Van. But generally speaking, it's designed to allow organizers to continue to see and engage with the events and event signups in My Campaign and continue to sort of use that for kind of organizer activity as well. So the data pipeline kind of flows both ways and is generally in real time. So something that we've invested a lot in and will continue to invest in as we build out even more of our virtual capabilities.
Great. We had a bunch of questions about like phone banking capabilities. Some of these questions are specific to the integration that you will use with Mobilize, but Jocelyn, maybe we can talk a little bit about the integrations and tools that are available for phone banking.
Yeah, so again, Mobilize works really, really well in tandem with most of the tools that you're already using. For instance, you can definitely set up an Act Now virtual event or even a shifted virtual event and potentially use something like Hub Dialer or Open Virtual Phone Bank and Van. Those are two of the more main tools out there, but you can definitely use those URLs to kind of immediately get people to act and make calls. We also have a phone to action integration. So if you are using phone to action and want to drive calls like that, we integrate directly to that. And then generally speaking, like I said earlier, we have lots of success and support. So we're always happy to talk one-on-one with you and your team and come up with really creative ways to do the work that you're doing.
Great. Jess, we had some questions about the Zoom platform and how they accommodate people with disabilities. Again, that's more specific to Zoom and not to Mobilize, but we can definitely talk about virtual accessibility on our platform. Jess, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, so like Emily said, I can't speak directly to how well Zoom accommodates people with disabilities, but something that we've invested a lot in is making sure that we have support for displaying accessibility information very clearly on event detail pages and allowing organizers to specify any accommodation needs when they're creating an event. So this is something that we are looking at extending to our virtual events capabilities very, very soon. So that will be coming shortly. But it's something that we're always sort of interested in hearing kind of feedback on and want to make sure that we're providing the clearest information as possible to volunteers in that regard. For instance, things like our feed filters. When you are visiting any sort of feed for any organization on Mobilize, you can now filter the feed based on whether the event itself meets certain criteria for event accessibility. And those are the sorts of investments that we will continue to make in this virtual first world.
Great. Jocelyn, over to you. Does Mobilize have any tools for online voter registration?
So this is a great question, and I do actually work with some clients that are working very heavily on voter registration. Because voter registration is so different from state to state and the rules and laws around it, we do not actually do voter registration. That is not something we do, but we do, again, work very well with a lot of the tools that you already use. And generally speaking, like I've said before, we are really happy to do all these one-on-one conversations and have some of these deeper dives specifically with your organization. Again, depending on what state you're in, sometimes you can do online registration and sometimes it has to be in person. So I'm happy to definitely talk about that in the future with you all though.
Great. We had a good question about feed structure. So Jess, instead of having one continuous feed of events, is it possible to break them up by groups, for instance, by wards or districts?
Yeah, this is a great question. So we currently have a bunch of filtering capabilities on the feed. Most of them are around either the event type or around a certain location. What we tend to see is that organizations will send links to volunteers that are pre-filtered to a specific area. And so they'll do that either by specifying a specific point or a zip code or a state or things like that. And that will that will give volunteers kind of a much smaller list of events that they can then sign up for. In a virtual first world, this is something that we're again exploring as we look at updates to the feed, but we want to also allow those in-person sort of locations to be relevant even where the event itself is virtual. And so you'll see that sort of update made in the very near future. But we expect to be able to continue to allow organizations to use those sort of feed filters to direct volunteers to events that are most relevant to them. Another thing I'll mention is that we've recently rolled out a change that will automatically detect location and show volunteers events that are nearest them. When events are all virtual, we expect to continue to be able to show events that they can do from anywhere that don't sort of have a location, but also events that are virtual but happening or are related to their local community. So this is what I mentioned earlier around making sure that we are continuing to preserve these local communities and even in this time of social distancing.
Just sort of a follow-up to that, we had a question, can individual counties use these platforms to reach out to their audiences?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, so absolutely. We've seen on Mobilize any size organization use Mobilize. So whether that's individual counties or state level organizing or national organizing. So so absolutely.
Jess, I hate to throw so many at you at once, but this is one you will like. Will it be possible in the future to add custom fields to events on Mobilize? Let's say if you wanted to get other details or information from people for an upcoming event.
Yes. So Emily obviously knows I'm smiling. So this is something that we're in the process of rolling out. We've already got a few beta partners using this functionality and are really looking forward to being able to roll this out in the very, very near future.
Great. Another one you will probably like, I might have missed this, but what opportunities are there to co-host events with other organizations? How does data sharing work in that context?
Great. I can take this, or Kit, I don't know if you want to talk about kind of cross promotion on the platform.
Well, do you want to talk about co-hosting and then I'll go
Okay,
for cross
cool.
promotion?
So we one of the kind of core kind of parts of Mobilize is this ability to, or one of the opportunities that we saw when building Mobilize was this ability to allow organizations to promote each other on the platform and to work with each other on the platform. And so we've seen a huge percentage of our shifts across the platform driven by that cross promotion. So what that tends to look like is an organization will mark another organization as an organization they want to promote, and that organization's events will appear in their feed and be available for signups. So that sort of collaboration can both drive signups to your organization and also give you a way to collaborate with other organizations on the platform. So that's sort of the network, one of the parts of the network that Kit mentioned earlier.
Yep, and we see, just to reiterate, we see about 40% of our signups coming from these cross-promotional events. So this is something that our partners have had a lot of success with. So you're building these coalitions behind the scenes, and then you're sharing each other's events on Mobilize. And in terms of the second part of the question, which was how the data sharing works, both organizations are going to get that volunteers data. So for example, a lot of our advocacy partners will endorse an electoral candidate and promote that candidate's event. So if I, as a volunteer, sign up for one of those events, both the advocacy group and the candidate, the electoral candidate, is going to get my data, so then you can both engage with me later.
Great, thanks guys. The all-important question, someone asked about the cost. Kit, is that something you can speak to broadly?
Yeah, absolutely. So we price based on the size and the scope of your organization. So as Jess mentioned, we work with small statewide or even as small as mayoral races up to the presidential. So obviously the scope of those different campaigns are quite different. So if you want to find out how much Mobilize would cost for your organization, we will be sending out a whole host of correspondence after this. So please make sure to get in touch with me, and I will make sure to schedule a quick phone call and get you an accurate quote.
We had a couple other questions I can answer pretty quickly. One was, is the platform offered in other languages? It is not currently. And we also had one that says, can those with phones but no internet access the platform through SMS? And that currently is not possible too. There are a couple other questions coming in. One is, can a consulting firm use one Mobilize account to sign up multiple accounts or campaigns? Jess or Kit?
I'm happy to take it. So this is something that whomever wrote that in, I'd love to chat with you about this. We are trying to figure out the best way for firms to adopt Mobilize and use it for their clients and their partners. The easiest way is for the consulting firm to partner with Mobilize and then to have individual feeds for all of their clients that they want to provide Mobilize for. That we've seen work quite well in the past. So the answer is absolutely, it is possible. And then the second part is I'd love to collaborate with whomever wrote that in to make sure that we are optimizing it for your use case, for what you have in mind.
Great. Well, there's one or two other questions that we're going to follow up individually because they're specific to that person's account. But other than that, I think we answered everything that came in. So we can wrap up. We're almost at time anyway. We want to thank you guys for joining. Quick reminder that I will send out the recording within about 48 hours, as well as a form where we would love your feedback and ideas for virtual events and features. We also will follow up with the ability to consult directly with someone from our team if you're interested in getting started. Overall, we just want to say your passion and generosity are exactly what the world needs right now, and we're really grateful at the opportunity to support you. So thank you again for joining, and we will be in touch soon.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah.